saying, I think that a lot of those ideas worth sharing too, making people uncomfortable in a safe way, a respectful way, which is, kind of the direction that we were working on with you, right? Because your experience, even though it might feel to some people like they're being called out, you know, we can do that in a way that's respectful by sharing your story, and that's how change happens.
Mm-hmm.
We have to sometimes be a little uncomfortable or be made to feel a little uncomfortable in a safe space on those platforms where the voices are being heard, and we can share our stories and then see each other a little differently, shift our perspective, and then carry that voice into our community when we leave the event after we hear your story,
Mm-hmm.
and just start to see things a little differently.
Yeah.
That's
Good morning. I am so excited to be doing Cafecito time today with one of amazing people that I know. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that we get lots of audience today and lots of questions. So today, I'm bringing in my TEDx coach. So I actually realized that I shared a little bit about doing TEDx back in November. Then when the video came out back in February, and I realized that we have gotten a lot of more followers by then, and that a lot of people didn't know that I was on TEDx Talk for Evansville, Indiana, which is where I grew up. And so today I'm bringing in Leslie Aids. She owns and operates City Social Events in Evansville. And she's a craft and heart-driven company that creates and logistically executes event experience in her community. Through her personal and professional life, she strives to influence those around her to create an environment where we can love ourselves and utilize our strength and to better the world around us and together. She's a creative dreamer at heart who seeks out challenges as opportunity. While she's not at the office or at an office or an event, you can find her rock climbing, running, obstacle course racing, bear crawling, and general training for her life. So I'm gonna add her right now, and she is awesome and fantastic. So I'm excited to share our story together.
Did it work?
Yes.
Ah, good. I think I canceled the first one on accident. I apologize.
That's weird. She's
That was
excited.
me.
Maybe you change your mind, run away. Just
Yeah.
kidding.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you too. I know that we haven't actually chatted like FaceTime in a long time. So
I
for those
know.
who may not know, when I was preparing for TEDx, Leslie and I were like on FaceTime a lot. So because I was in Washington State, I had just recently moved and she was in Evansville, Indiana. So we made it work and practiced a lot. In the end, the TEDx talk, well, we'll get to that, but it wasn't what I planned. So
Yeah. I know. I was
well,
thinking about that this morning too, thinking about having this conversation, and a lot of our relationship was based on that virtual connection. So it's kind of neat.
yeah. So for those who are just tuning in, I know that we'll be getting more people who wonder what this is. I'm gonna quickly write on here and pin a comment for those who are joining in. Is how to land a TEDx talk and what it is. Give me a second. So I guess we'll start with some basic questions. So you're calling from Evansville. Maybe can you tell us what is TEDx and what is TEDx Evansville?
Yeah, so TEDx Evansville, it's an independently organized TED event. So there's a licensee in Evansville. I believe all the independently run TEDx's have to have that licensee.
Hmm.
And it's a platform for people in communities around the world to use their voice for the ideas they have that are worth sharing. So that's the general idea, and one of the main taglines of the event is ideas worth sharing. So
Yeah, I'm excited. And I know there's one here in Portland, so there you
Mhm.
might see them and they're like locally organized. So the one in Evansville, that's the one she's talking about.
Mhm.
Because I know some people might not know what they are, and I know I've seen them at other universities even get that license themselves and do them. And you might see those TEDx talks on YouTube. So that's basically how I found what that was. I know that I hope that we see more Latinas, more diversity in TEDx talks. I know that when I was exploring that, I didn't see a lot of Latinx on online, so that's why I'm hoping to explore that with you and for those who may be interested in sharing their story, for those who may be interested in expressing ideas that are worth inspiring, so worth knowing. And I hope that this video will help you kind of break that barrier of being shy, because I know for me that was a really big deal. So I applied for TEDx. I think you guys had the application open in June, correct, for TEDx Evansville?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and I saw it and I kept my eye on it, like where when it would open. I was like, oh, I want to do it. At that time, Latina was our online platform was pretty young, and I was like, oh, you know what? I think I want to do this. I definitely always wanted to do public speaking, so I applied, and the first few questions were like, what is it that you want to do? So I first remember opening up that page and I was just like, don't know what I want to share. There's so many things I want to share. And so I remember closing it and walking away. I came back to it, opened it again. I wrote down what I thought maybe I could share with people and like just kind of prepared it by hand. And then I closed it again. I was like, I'll apply. And then I think I opened it like a week later, which, oh, excuse me, that was me. Um, Opened it a week later and I was like, okay, I'm going to apply. So I finally got myself, uh, I applied, but I was waiting to hear, and eventually I did hear that the one that you guys wanted me to audition, and I was so nervous, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I want me to audition, and I thought I knew what I wanted to talk about, and so for me, I talk about this a lot, but I prayed, so
Mhm.
I like tried to find my inner voice, like what I wanted to tell you, to share with our community in Evansville, pertaining to Evansville. And I decided to kind of write down what I wanted to say. I think I prepared my stuff like, and then don't do this. I'm telling you, not don't do this part, but I prepared my stuff like at like a day, like at the night before, because I was brainstorming. Once I found out that they wanted me, I was brainstorming like because they wanted me to be prepared, and we ended up doing the video audition, and we ended up I ended up seeing Leslie on camera, and immediately, like, I knew that you were so genuine. So I was just like, okay. So that's how that part went. And so but you as a coach, how did you get involved on TEDx for me to kind of run into you in that way?
Yeah, I originally got involved with TEDx probably like 2 or 3 years ago because I just started an event planning business here in Evansville, and one of my best friends, and also Matt Wagner, who he and I led the curatorial team together last year. He asked me if I wanted to come on board to help volunteer and help with the event coordination
Yeah.
aspect, and so I did that first, and then over time, he and I kind of transitioned into that role of curatorial, and we wanted to redesign what that process looked like. So the process for finding potential speakers in the community and creating a committee to help review the applications and select speakers and be there for the audition. So we had multiple different voices and perspectives of people hearing the people that were auditioning. So that's whenever, because I think I called you about the audition, and so that's how we first met. And
Yeah.
I like, even speaking to what makes a good TEDx talker or what helps people become selected, in my opinion, from what I've seen and what we experienced, I think, as a group with the committee, is Whenever people, like all the notes that you took and all the preparation that you did and brainstorming of what you wanted to talk about, I think that it was so effective and resonated with people. I know, like, for me, when I heard your audition on video, I was like holding back tears. I felt it like so deep in my soul. And I think it's because you were speaking from your heart. And when people are speaking about something that is close to them, that's personal to them, something that they care about, they're passionate about, it comes across as authentic and people want to share that energy. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times, um, well, now that, looking back, I feel like the best TEDx talks are the ones that are personal, the
Mm-hmm.
ones that you can connect with. I know that we will have a lot of um, individuals come up there and they will spread big ideas about science or
Mm-hmm.
about anything else, but a lot of them are, that's like your special experience. Like, why do they want to even get in that research, or that what is that important to them? Why are they doing this with their life? So you always have to be genuine. I think that's probably like the most
Yeah.
important part about being chosen to do a TEDx talk.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was definitely Latina. Like, that's basically what's important to me. Like, how we were starting to share stories that were so important to our community. And we
Mm-hmm.
were starting to see role models in our community that we don't often see, but
Yeah.
not just like what they earned, but it was more importantly how they overcame those struggles. And like my
Mm-hmm.
talk was about all the, I think, and I think it was Matt. Yeah, it was Matt. Matt, he was my other coach. So Leslie and him were my co-coaches. So I was pretty much pampered having the two of the TEDx people being my coaches. But Matt, he heard my speech, and I think I just started off like, it was very simple. Like, started off telling about like coming from El Salvador as an immigrant, and the things struggles I faced in the U.S. and in Evansville specifically, and what my family experienced. And he was, towards the end, I was like trying to finish off with the things I accomplished, and Matt was like, "Let's flip it. Let's start with, and this is how it kind of works. Like, your story, what you started at first, will not be what you end up at the end." But he was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Let's start off with you just bragging. Like, what did that look like? When you read someone's bio, just putting up all of what they accomplished. A lot of people will feel like, wow, that's impressive, but do they really feel connected? Like, really,
Mm-hmm.
truly connected to you?" And that's when he was like, let's do it backwards. Let's put up like what it is that like your bio would say, and then like start breaking it down and everything it took to accomplish that. And that was just really important for my speech, which was sharing. The whole point of it was what Latina does, sharing your struggles and being real and breaking those barriers. So I really enjoyed the writing process, even though sometimes it's just like it was kind of hard to let go. But I had you and
Yeah.
Matt who were just so and so motivating, and that this was mine, and that
Mm-hmm.
was so important that I could I could make it my own, and it was my own story. But then you also tried to gear me to like ask me questions to challenge me in the writing process, and that was really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I know we were both humbled by your writing and your story and how you carry yourself and how vulnerable you are in the process too. I mean, we're grateful that we were able to share in that experience with you, and helping you write and tell your story. So,
Yeah, it was, now looking back, it was a long, long process.
yeah, I know. It was long and it flew by at the same time. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Like, looking back, it looks like really long. And when you're in a process, it just feels like you're running out of time the whole time.
Yes. Yes.
So I did prepare some questions that, again, for our audience that are tuning in, we're talking about how to land a TEDx talk and what our journey was with Leslie and I going as a coach and a mentee or talk like speaker. I don't know what to
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah,
I'll
speaker.
call myself a speaker. And we want to see more Latinx on stage. Oh my gosh, I would love to see it, especially if you're coming off the Latina platform. You're like, yeah, we saw your video, get inspired. I'm like, yes, this worked. You know that we're inspiring people to spread those big ideas in your story. So I do have some questions prepared, but please make sure that you jump on and that you guys ask questions. How how did something work? What behind the scenes looks like for TEDx? Ask those questions because that's what we'll be referring to today. Um, was I think I was your first person that you coached for TEDx, correct?
Correct.
And
Yes.
how, like, from the beginning to now, how did that look like for you on the coach side? How did that uh,
Hmm.
feel that you needed to somehow prepare this person to get up there in front of like 300 people?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to that speaking from your heart concept that I was talking about
Mhm.
that you had in your audition. And I know, like, especially with Matt and I, with the entire curatorial, how we operate in general is, we think that people are always doing the best they can where they are with the tools that they have. And so that was kind of the mentality going into it with the coaching too. We saw it as us working together and being with you throughout that process. And I think one of the biggest things that we learned, that I learned working with you, is that I changed, I think, just as much as you did. And it's hard to compare, but I know I learned so much every single time we met, and I've carried that with me after the event into everything that I do. And you've been an inspiration in the way that we work together. Whenever you would practice your speech and we would kind of have that back and forth. I like that vulnerability that you have. I keep that in mind, and it inspires me to be vulnerable when I need to as well. And I think one of the biggest things with you mentioned the audience, the 300 people, excuse me, keeping in mind, I think one of the biggest things that we learned together was that there is so much prep work and heart and time that goes into your talk, right? Like, you rewrote your talk so many times. Even, we're making edits up until like the week of, and it's kind of coming to ground with knowing that that's your starting point, and it's one platform. It's not the only platform, and that you may not resonate with every single person in the audience, but you're going to resonate with a lot of people if you're authentic. You speak from your heart, and if you go off script, people don't know that. Only you know
Mhm.
that, and I know that. So I know that's something I think we both kind of learned, especially towards the end, whenever you memorize it and kind of get off script from what it was exactly written down, but it still was beautiful and worked, and we were the only ones that knew.
Yes, I think looking back now, especially if anyone's thinking of auditioning, remember this: no one knows what you wrote, and if you're sticking to scripts. And I would hear that, but as a perfectionist, and for me, it's like an overachiever, always trying my best. It felt like I would be slacking if I did that and I didn't know. But once you know what you were talking about, it
Mm-hmm.
will come to you. And I did not break that glass because really it's like a glass of, um, first of all, my stubbornness that I wanted to stick to the script what I wrote. I had, spent so much time writing and perfecting and calculating the time frame of when I was going to when it started, when it ended, make sure the timeliness of it was gonna be perfect. But and I'm talking about like the amount of time that we had to speak, and then breaking that glass of I'm okay with knowing what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about, and if I don't remember what I'm talking about, that's okay. I can
Mm-hmm.
just go in and just tell my story. And that was really hard to break that glass. I didn't break it until the night before. Even though
Yeah.
we had practice, I think 2 days before, and then we have been practicing I have been practicing every single day on camera, off camera, and on FaceTime with you guys because I also was recording myself since
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the opportunity to be present with you. A lot of
Yeah.
other people had the opportunity to be with their coaches, and I didn't have that. So even if you've moved away from yours, like I did, like from your small city, or your city where you grew up, and you're a different part, you were a member of that community. You know what it was to grow up in the community, and don't be afraid to auditions for those positions. And I really hope that we see more Latinx on video after this. Will be so exciting. And I think another question I have for you is that um, the people that were involved in TEDx. So I know I had you as my coach with Matt, and he was the head of the committee with you, correct? Of
Yes.
the people who curated, and there were coaches too involved. But who are the people involved in TEDx? And maybe people might be thinking, well, maybe not being on stage is my thing, but I would like to volunteer and coach. So who are those people? Are they volunteers, and what type of positions are needed and that need to be filled to make this happen? Because it's a big production, basically.
Yeah, it's a huge production, and it takes a lot of us to bring it together. Just as far as like a leadership committee from that standpoint, we have Matt and I did the curatorial. There's the licensee. There are people who kind of oversee everything, project manage. There are people that are doing the event coordination, so kind of planning all the details behind the scenes. And then as we get closer to doing the day of coordination and then managing logistics that day, um, and one other large role is promotion. So having someone that helps us with social media and getting word out into the community. And there's also behind the scenes a fundraising team, because the event, it costs quite a bit of money to produce, because it is recorded. And then there is the production side after the event of editing and getting the videos up online. Um, but aside from that, there's also people that just volunteer the day of. So people that come in and help sign in speakers and help get speakers from the planning room up to the stage area. People that are checking in guests and helping with food and helping with direction, things like that. But really, anyone in the community can be involved just by following their local TEDx page on Facebook, by attending the event. Um, people who people who just support having other people's voices heard in their community. To me, that's contributing and playing a part. But yeah, anyone that is involved in TEDx is a volunteer. And I know with TEDx Evansville, anyone that wants to be involved can be in any capacity that they want to. So and even I'm missing one of the biggest parts, the curatorial committee. So the committee that Matt and I led, they were all people from different pockets of Evansville, and we had, I think, like 15, 20 people. And the idea behind that was to bring together different people with a diverse background, different life experience. So that way, whenever they reviewed the applications and saw the people auditioning, we were having different perspectives listen, different perspectives at the table to ask questions as we were trying to select speakers and put together this event. So that way we weren't curating a set of speakers that were all the same person saying a different thing, if that makes sense. But that role is incredibly important, and our curatorial committee spent a lot of time reviewing applications, taking it very seriously, and pouring their heart into our speakers and the people that were auditioning. So
And I think it's also important if you don't want to, you don't think you're ready for that speaking role, to consider volunteering in some way, even if it is a curatorial committee. You're choosing diverse candidates who are going to be sharing their ideas, and I want to see that. I know that for me, it's so important to, bringing this to the Latina community. It's very important that we see that across the U.S. So I really hope that you consider, even just volunteering at first, maybe seeing how that goes, what work kind of goes into it. If you would decide to be a coach, if you've uh, have done speaking in the past, and you rather be a coach first and then see someone go through it, and then you can go through it. And if you need help, like with the ideas. Like for me, what helped me the most of what I was going to talk about was research. I know that you guys provided me with a pamphlet where it kind of gave me some ideas, and then you also provided
Hmm.
some resources from TEDx official, like the organizational, the one that does the licenses for the
Hmm.
TEDx, and you guys provided me with making sure that I was authentic, that I was creating um, a catchy title for my speech. That I was working on that. For me was like why sharing your circle story why engaging your community in your circle story can change the world, which is what we're doing with Latina, and that was really powerful for my community, because I think for specifically for my community, it needed to be about opening up. And I think a lot of people in the community are afraid to be vulnerable. We are always
Hmm.
wanting to wear these masks. And so for make sure you research your community, like what is it that will speak to them. So yes, it is about you, but then it's not really about you. It's
Yeah.
about who you're talking to, the people that you're going to be impacting. Who is your audience? So remembering your audience, making sure that you are on point of where you want the community to go. And I think that was probably the most important key, that you make it personal, but not so personal that nobody can relate to that. You have to be able to remember who you're talking to. And for me, I was really afraid of that because if you've been on a live IG before, talking to my audience here, you probably have seen how I talked about the struggles I faced in Evansville. And Leslie and Matt were the most encouraging people and telling me, you need to just talk about this. And I was so afraid because for me, I was like, I don't want to come into this audience and feel like I'm criticizing my community
Hmm.
for, the hate crimes, for the racism, for all the struggles I face. Like, it's not, yeah, it needs to change, but I also don't want to, people to be upset at me. Like, I was thinking.
Yeah.
And you guys were like, well, it's not really about that. It's about um, being human and finding that human connection, um, and that in like the people can relate to a story. I know that I have had other people have made, and not specifically, mostly of me hearing these, but I have heard people say, um, it's for you to be sharing um your struggle story as a Latina. Like, are you maybe creating a stereotype? Like, are you maybe what's the word, like being like the first, the dangers of being the first?
Hmm.
I heard people like kind of make comments that you don't have to be the first, that you should, what I'm trying to say is like you should not be a coin, like a token. And for me it doesn't come off like that because in my community it was needed for sure.
Hmm.
And I'm not being the first just because I want to be the first. It's just that position that I happened to be in. And instead of just me being the only one, I'm turning around and saying, no, we need more Latinos to be, Latinx to be on stage. We need them to be able to speak up. And it doesn't have to be about, ethnicity. It doesn't have to be about racism. It can be any big idea that you want to see. I just want to see you up there. So if you're watching this and it's because of that you want to know how to land that TEDx talk, just remember to be your true self. What is that, and what is the big idea that you think others can relate to, and that it's needed to be heard in your community. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And can I
I,
add to that a little
yeah.
bit? I mean, just like going along with what you're saying, I think that a lot of those ideas worth sharing too. Making people uncomfortable in a safe way, a respectful way, which is, kind of the direction that we were working on with you, right? Because your experience, even though it might feel to some people like they're being called out, you know, we can do that in a way that's respectful by sharing your story, and that's how change happens.
Mm-hmm.
We have to sometimes be a little uncomfortable or be made to feel a little uncomfortable in a safe space on those platforms where the voices are being heard and we can share our stories and then see each other a little differently, shift our perspective, and then carry that voice into our community when we leave the event after we hear your story,
Hmm.
and just start to see things a little differently.
Yeah.
That's I think where it starts, but it takes someone being brave and having the courage to stand up on stage and say those things like you did to start that process. So,
Yeah. And I think especially when it comes to talking about race, and a lot of the times, yes, it's very sensitive from both sides. And I'm talking
mhm,
about the ones who are extreme individuals who don't want to hear it because they think they're right, and those that are coming in and they do want justice. They, they're using their voice. They're coming in strong, but then the other side kind of blocks that off. Like they don't want to hear it. So
mhm,
for me, it was very important to break that barrier because in my community, it was important for them to see that what I was capable of as a woman who was Latina, all the things I did face, specifically talking. I was pulling out, like even pointing out my high school, and my high school was like next door to the auditorium where I was
yeah,
talking, and so it was important to talk about those things because if no one talked about it now, how are things going to change? But also knew, like you said, needed to do it in a way that I would be heard and not ignored.
mhm,
And that was very important to me because I wanted to be heard, specifically by the Caucasian community of Evansville. And at the end of my speech, I did not expect, well, I didn't expect a lot of things, but the last thing I didn't expect was for people to actually stand up and clap. And
mhm.
that was so overwhelming for me. And that's why I cried. That's
I
why
cried a little bit too.
yeah, I know you came down. I found you crying too.
I feel
But
teary-eyed now. That was like your entire talk, because I remember we were watching it from the like the ramp below all of the seats, and Matt and I were standing there, and I was crying almost the whole time. And then as soon as it was over and we saw the standing ovation, it was just like it was so wonderful.
yeah, I was shocked because I was talking to a very, very conservative Caucasian crowd. I was
Mm-hmm.
standing in the middle of a lot of people who believe that they are elites or that they are very against immigrants. And I was, as an immigrant woman, talking up there as a brown girl. It was very something, and I was not even just sharing a little bit about myself. I was sharing the whole shebang.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everything. I guess I have that saying. Apparently, I speak a lot of Indiana over here compared to in Washington State and Oregon State compared to Indiana. But the whole sink. I was saying in law school. I was just throwing it in there, and I had crafted it in a way that people could see me as a human, as an individual, and that they would see me with you guys' help, that they would see me as a professional. So
Mm-hmm.
coming into a talk to the community, and that was so important. So carry yourself proudly and carry yourself also humbly, and remembering that you are a product of a lot of people's sacrifices, that you are also capable of speaking to whatever audience you want to, when you do it in a way that is going to be powerful, humanly related towards
Mm-hmm.
that audience, like you're connecting to that human person, like that human essence, and that you are doing it in a respectful way. So that was very important. I think a lot of people at the end of the talk, I even had a lot of Caucasian individuals, not just a lot of, other ethnicities coming up and talking to me, that they wanted to also tell them it changed them, like how the perspective of what I
Mm-hmm.
went through as a member of the immigrant community in Evansville. So it was very
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because
sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say I think a lot of the people in the audience too, and a lot of people in Evansville, a lot of people around the world, so many people are um, they're good people, they're well intentioned, but they still don't know how their conditioning is affecting how they treat people and how they can't see from someone else's perspective because they've never taken the time to hear someone else's story. And so I think that having, those people in the audience too. And you know, I'm one of them too, and I'm trying to consistently learn and do my own work so that way I can hear people, I can hear myself. And so I think that your story also, you know, resonated with those individuals as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it it can be life changing when you're all in and that
Mhm.
you're not afraid. And putting that fear aside is very difficult because I
Mhm.
had fear all up until the day of the speech. And you can see that on my video. I just someone asked a question, where can we find your TEDx talk? So if you just type in my name, Cindy Petrov Alfaro on YouTube, and it should come up with TEDx Evansville, which is under the official TEDx talk channel.
Mhm.
So you'll see it there. And I was gonna ask you, and I don't know if we can I post like a little snippet on my Instagram? I didn't know if I could, but it was
Yeah, I think so. I can ask and double check, but I'm
yeah,
pretty sure since they're live on the YouTube video, you should be able to. Yeah.
yeah. I think I just wanted to share and then like put the link so people can go and watch the whole thing.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and I shared it a little while back
That's
with
so
the
good.
Latina people, our Latina accounts, but I don't. I think we have grown so much after that. It has been more organically, more so because of the talk, but it has been very good to see how it impacted others, and then in my community specifically about sharing their story, but also it makes me realize that a lot of people don't know that I had that opportunity to be on that platform, and I definitely want to see you guys on stage. So I do have more questions. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to comment down in the comment box, and I'll answer them with Leslie. So I'm excited that we're doing this finally
Yes.
to see you. I miss you a
I
lot.
know, I miss you.
I can't wait for the pandemic, to finally things to get back to normal. I don't know when it
Mhm.
will be, but I already have my ticket to Evansville. It's still because I had bought a ticket to go visit
Pending.
her birthday. Well, my mom wanted me to come see her, and,
Mm.
and then everything happened, and she was like, I want you to come, but I don't want you to risk it. And we didn't know at
Yeah.
that time how difficult it was, how
Mhm.
serious this was. But we made the call of not going, and I was like planning to like surprise everyone. Like,
Oh gosh.
but but yeah, I do have more questions here for you, Leslie. Some things that we kind of have hit a lot of the questions, which is good that we know
Yeah.
for each other. So let's go to kind of talking about the day of the event because I think
Mhm.
we need to talk to what working up to the day. We kind of talked about that, what it was going through the writing and rewriting process. We did talk about what it was preparing for 300 audience, what your topic could be about, how to get to that point. Now, kind of like behind the scenes, I did do some videos. So if you just head over to my Cindy Petrov Alfaro handle on Instagram, I do have a TEDx icon on my stories, and you can click on it and kind of see some of the behind the scenes of what it looks like from before when I was getting ready to do my talk. And my husband prepared. He was my Instagram manager that day to take pictures and videos on that day. But let's see. So kind of yeah. I guess we can walk through the day by day play of that day. I know
Yeah.
we're having some last minute not audition, sorry, practices right before. Um,
Mhm.
and you guys were up, I'm guessing pretty early that day.
I think so. Yeah, it's so typically the event, the TEDx Evansville event has been hosted during the day, and just I can't remember exactly how it happened, but somehow it ended up working out to where the event was at night this year, or last year, which I thought worked out wonderfully. It was a Friday night, so we did have all that time during the day for people to come in whenever they wanted to and practice on the stage with the microphone and with the screen behind them, so they could you know, run through their PowerPoints and just kind of feel what it would be like to be on the stage. But yeah, we had the green room ready downstairs. People could come there and get ready if they wanted to. one of the really cool things that we did, I'm sure you remember, is we had someone lead a meditation on the stage right before the doors opened for guests to come in, and that was something I can't remember how we decided to do that, but it was really, it was a really beautiful experience, I think, to have all of the speakers in one space, and most of the speakers had their coaches with them. We all stood on the stage together in a circle, did some breathing exercises, meditation, and just kind of grounded together, because the energy it's electric, and there are a lot of nerves because the stage is intimidating, and there's so much heart and so much work that's gone into preparing that talk. And so that was, I haven't thought about that moment for a while, so I'm so grateful for right now because I'm kind of reliving that. But that was one of the most beautiful parts of it, was coming together in that way.
Yeah, it would definitely help me a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
I was so nervous because, and I think, and I have, spoken out on a lot of other platforms before, and I
Yeah.
have never been this nervous before. I have had opportunity to be a speaker in different ways, but at different topics, especially when it comes to like immigration or something like that, like especially when I was in law school, and it helped me, every single time. And when I was a program director for a nonprofit, like I was always giving these different talks, but it was about things that were not as personal. And
Hmm.
getting up there was a whole different feeling of being vulnerable, like
Yeah.
a whole different level. So I was nervous, so scared, and that's okay to be scared. It's part of human nature. And I got up there to meet with you guys for meditation, and I was like, how is this gonna help me? Like but then as I'm seeing looking around the circle, this we did this little circle, looking around the circle, and I saw that every single person was nervous, including the coaches that were around us. And I was like, okay, this is this is fine. I'm among people. Some people are really good at hiding it. As an empath, I can still feel their energy. I was trying not to feel their energy, still feeling their energy. I think the whole time I had my sound canceling headphones on when I was
Yeah, you did.
downstairs because I was so nervous. I didn't want to hear anyone say how nervous they were. It wasn't helping me, but I was telling myself, I think at some point before everybody started going up there, I dozed off. Like I just
Yeah.
fell asleep.
You
And
were in the zone. I remember coming downstairs, and like there were a bunch of people in the room, and you were on one of the couches, and you were just sitting there. You had your headphones, and you're just like you're in it. And so we're like, you do you. This is what she needs to do.
no one bothered me because I knew if I was put them on, no one would bother me because I know they were gonna ask me questions, and I didn't
Yeah.
want to like think about anything else because I would forget. And I had memorized the speech, but and I had finally broken through because my dad. Oh, I should probably point this out. So my parents have a small restaurant, and my parents didn't have the privilege to be able to take off work. Like they don't have the opportunity. Like one of them always has to be running the restaurant. They're always working. They have two small businesses. So as and other immigrant families in the same way, like you just kind of sometimes have to skip important things. I
Mhm.
was so grateful that you guys allowed him to come to my rehearsal, and my dad was present, and he was him and my brother, I think, and my husband, all three of them were there. And for
Mhm.
me to do this, especially the talk in front of him, was so emotional. It was an emotional thing. And when I was done, I remember he got up and started clapping, and he was crying. He was shaking, and I was just so touched. And part of me was glad that he wasn't there doing the real thing because I was able to practice in a way
Yeah.
that he would be able to hear it, but I wouldn't be as emotional when he was there. And I thought I wasn't gonna get emotional at all. So once we were finally on the real with the real deal, not no longer a rehearsal, my mom was going to be there, and with my brother and my husband, and I was also very nervous because my mom is the closest uh, after my husband. She's like the closest human to me. She's my best friend, and I was very scared to get up there. So I remember seeing you and Matt like off on the side, and I wanted to use my PowerPoint so that people might know there is usually a screen where you can see what your PowerPoint, when you see all these TEDx people look like they know what's coming up next on the slide is because they have the control. They're looking down and making sure that they're on the right PowerPoint. So that's what's going on. And I could not use mine because I was so nervous. I couldn't use my PowerPoint. And I just decided, dang it, people need to know geography and where else I'll be. In which is, I prepared for anything I could. I thought maybe I might get some booze. I thought maybe I might get angry people walking out or something. I was just so terrified of speaking up to the community. And they finally, when I was up there, I remember thinking, okay, I know this part. I know my intro. I started with my intro, and when I was done, almost done with it, I had taken a slight pause, and people started clapping, and that was the last thing I expected. So then, if you watch the video, I start crying, and I was like, "Dang it!" inside. And my friend Sashan was there with my mom, and she's the one that said, "You got this," and because she thought I was gonna turn around halfway, like beginning of my speech, and walk away. Like she thought I was so nervous because she knows me. I was so nervous that I was just gonna walk out, and I wasn't going to because I pushed through. So that's when she started clapping, and everybody started clapping because I was getting teary eyed. Then I started crying, and it actually worked perfectly because you guys had walked me through to say, just be real and say, I'm honestly nervous being up here. And I say that in some way. And then I went into my talk, and I didn't get to say everything. I ended up, if you want to check it out, like the full speech of what it looked like, I posted it on our Latina blog, so you can find it there. And we ended up finishing the talk, and towards the end, I just realized how much I had said to so many people, and to a place where I grew up, and where a lot of people knew me, and it became very emotional for me to just finish up, and I once more cried. Like I didn't expect that, but it was a very powerful way to connect to people. And I think that's the beauty of these talks, and I hope that we do see more powerful stories, and that we see a lot of the Latina community sharing what's important to them in whatever way that might be. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of like behind the scenes for me. I know that for when I came down to try to find you and Matt, because the first thing I wanted to do when I came down, I wanted to see my husband, but I really wanted to see you guys and hug you guys because I was also just very proud of finally I got up there.
I know. Yeah, and you
And
found us, and I think I was just like, I was crying hysterically.
your eyes were really red. You were
You were
crying.
you were trying to console me, and I, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience, and I think that's one of the overall most beautiful parts about TEDx and how everybody comes together. You become one with the crowd. You get to build this connection with the people that you're working with for coaching, and every speaker gets a coach. Like that's part of it. So even if you're not a trained speaker, that's actually great because
Yeah,
you get to learn along the way. You get to make it yours. You get to own it because it's your voice, it's your talk. And so there are no rules. It's you, and that came to life on the stage too. And I think that was part of the reason why we became, or I know me, like why I was so emotional, and
hmm
I could feel your authenticity, and you could just see it happening in the room, and it was, yeah, it was incredible.
yes, and I think that's probably another recommendation that, like you said,
Hmm.
it's okay if you haven't ever talked
Hmm.
to anyone before, and you will have time to work through it with your coach, and
Yep.
you will have time. Like I was even challenging myself to go to empty theater, like open theaters here in my state in Portland,
Yeah.
Oregon. Just I was just like this, it looked like I was a, you know, some other type of individual in some other place. Like I was just in my head, but I was just standing in this like empty place, and a lot of people were walking by, and I was just yelling out, belting out my talk, and
I
some
remember
people
you'd send me videos.
listening, but it was like breaking through that fear. I had
Hmm.
practiced in that way. So I know we're kind of ending in our time here, but I do have a couple questions. Are you coaching again this coming TEDx?
Yes,
Yes,
definitely.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm involved indefinitely at this point. I mean, I'm very passionate about it. We're on board for curatorial. I know things are going to be the timeline will be shifted due to COVID, but we're still working behind the scenes to see how we can kind of gear up for the next event whenever that's going to be.
Well,
So.
yeah, you kind of don't know at this moment, right?
No, we were actually before all this happened, we were debating on whether or not to do something the fall of this year, spring of next year, just due to like life and needing to secure funding and trying to work around schedules to get our curatorial committee back together. And then this happened, and so it kind of made the decision a little bit easier to kind of push into 2021. But I think that'll be best to allow adequate time for people to prepare, kind of get back into a new normal with just daily life, anyways, and then yeah, just kind of ebb and flow and go with what's needed to get ready for the next one.
Okay, I hope it does happen because I love watching them. I love
Yeah,
my colleagues too. It's just great. Yeah.
yeah,
And what I know that you guys have hosted other events in between this.
yeah.
So can you tell us what those are and what they're for maybe the community? Because I'm hoping that also Evansville community is able to listen to these. I'm not sure if every
Yeah.
licensed city does them, but maybe look into that.
Yeah, so we actually, one of the promotional events that we started, and it was the original idea was to do a salon event, but those are to use that name and to host an event that is considered a salon event. There are a lot of different rules, and we didn't have the proper licenses, and we didn't secure them. And so what we did was myself, Matt, and then someone else on the committee, DeAndre Wilson, we started doing an event that was originally to help promote TEDx, and it still does that, but it has kind of grown into something different, something that we're just doing independently. It's called Heard. Um, One of the things about TEDx that it's not accessible to everybody. It's a ticketed event, and not everybody is able to go. So and not everybody is able to get on the stage either, because there is that audition process, and there are so many people that have wonderful ideas that maybe don't even make it to the audition stage, or people that audition that aren't selected to speak, but they still have something to say. They still have that voice that needs to be heard. And so Heard is really a platform, another safe space where you can come in. You have 5 minutes to talk, 5 minutes for Q&A. You can sign up in advance or just show up that night. We've had people show up, and I'm just astounded at people's bravery when it comes to just kind of getting up and saying those things that are really hard to say in front of people that they don't know. But it's a place for anyone to come and say what's on their mind, to be respected. And, we have a lot of people that say things that not everybody agrees with, but we're all in that space together. And so, yeah, that's one of the events that we've done to promote it. And right now, we recently started an Instagram account for Heard, just during the pandemic, and we hope to continue that. And we're looking into doing some virtual Heard events just for people to kind of talk about what they're going through right now, because I think it's so important.
Yeah, especially now, and kind of uplifting each other and
Mm-hmm.
human spirit, and yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's a beautiful connection.
yeah,
That would be awesome, and let me know because I would love to
I
attend.
will.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can attend virtually now.
Yes, I know. That's how we work as virtual.
Yeah. But thank you, Leslie, so much for joining us.
Thank
For those
you.
who missed our how to land some TEDx, the TEDx talk at whatever city you want to do it. this will be a playback. It'll be available for 12 hours on Instagram, and it will be posted on our YouTube channel, which will be posted on our website. So if you guys want to hear this from Leslie and from me, how we work together in a journey, it's been so beautiful to go back through this again with you, Leslie. So
Yeah,
thank you so much for being online with me today.
Cindy. I'm grateful for you, grateful for everyone that joined us.
And as always, I'm a hugger, so I'm sending you a really big hug from over
I
here.
know.
Social
And
distancing right now.
yeah.
Stay safe, Leslie. Thank you,
You
everyone.
too.
And I look forward to speaking to you tomorrow. Tomorrow is just a Q&A with me about listening to who you want to be an upcoming speaker, like what type of ideas you want to bring so that Latina can do, other things you would like us to do. Please be online tomorrow to do a Q&A so I can answer some questions you guys might have. So it'll be just me tomorrow, so you who you'll hang out with tomorrow. But I'm looking forward to hearing you in my community. So thank you so much, Leslie. Have a
Thank you,
great time
Cindy.
and have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye. Bye,
Bye.
guys.